The confluence of light was an architecture of pure thought-given form, a chamber carved not from stone, but from the solidified harmonies of a billion years of consensus. Crystalline pillars, impossibly vast, soared into a ceiling that was not a ceiling at all but a living star map, a slow, majestic swirl of nebulae and galactic arms rendered in captive light. Here, within the heart of the Lumina Imperium, the prisms convened. They were not beings of flesh, but ancient, complex consciousnesses given shape as towering, multifaceted crystals, each resonating with a unique frequency of light, and thought that pulsed in time with the slow, eternal rhythm of their civilization. Silence in the confluence was not an absence of sound, but a presence of pure, unadulterated meaning, a shared state of being that transcended mere language. Yet today that silence was fractured, discordant. It was heavy with a quality the Lumina had not experienced on a collective scale for millennia: fear. Prism Valerius of Concord, whose form shimmered with the gentle, azure light of reason and diplomacy, felt the discordant vibrations emanating from the others. He felt them most keenly from Xyler, the prism of dominion, whose crystalline structure glowed a fierce, impatient crimson. Xyler's thoughts were not silent waves, but percussive blasts of certainty, hammering against the delicate lattice of their shared space. The subject of their terror, the source of this unprecedented schism in their unity, was a species that had appeared at the galactic fringe, a whisper that had grown into a disquieting murmur and now threatened to become a roar. They called themselves humans. Their expansion is a plague, Xyler projected, his crimson light flaring, casting sharp, blood-colored shadows across the confluence. They move without pattern, without the elegant logic of stellar drift or gravitational necessity. Their worlds are chaotic mires of biological excess, and their ships defy the sacred laws of physics. They do not travel through space. They tear it, they wound it, leaving scars in the quantum foam that scream of their passage. Prism Lyra of memory, her facets a deep, contemplative violet, stirred. The light within her form was ancient, filled with the faint, spectral images of forgotten histories. The archives are silent on their origins, she resonated, her tone a low, resonant hum that spoke of eons of accumulated knowledge. They are a true anomaly. We have observed them for a standard cycle, and their behavior remains opaque. They build, they communicate, they proliferate, but their ultimate purpose is a void. We see the effect, but not the cause. It is unsettling. Valerius shifted his own internal resonance, letting a wave of calming, blue-tinted logic wash through the chamber. Unsettling is not the same as hostile, Xyler. We have no evidence of aggression. They have not encroached upon the designated territories of any member of the Galactic Compact. Their chaotic expansion has been confined to the so-called unclaimed voids, regions deemed too unstable for stable habitation by any logical species. Logic, Xyler pulsed with derision. They are biological. Their existence is a monument to illogical processes. They live, they breed, they die, all within the span of a cosmic eye blink. Such fleeting lives must breed desperation, a hunger for resources, a frantic need to grasp for permanence where none can be found. They are a fire in the dark, and they will consume everything if we do not extinguish them or, at the very least, contain them. The focus of their fear was not merely the human's existence, but a specific event their deep-range observatories had witnessed. A rogue fleet of corsairs, remnants of the long-shattered Graal hegemony, had descended upon a fledgling human colony. The Lumina had watched, their sensor arrays attuned to every nuance of the engagement, expecting a brutal but conventional battle. They had expected to see the crude exchange of kinetic weapons or the raw fury of plasma cannons. What they saw instead had broken their understanding of the universe. The human ships, a collection of disparate, asymmetrical designs, had not fired a single projectile. They had simply waited. As the Corsair fleet moved into attack formation, a silence fell over the sector. Not just a silence of sound, but a silence of energy, of radiation, of existence itself. Then a ripple. It was not light, not energy, not anything the Lumina could classify. It was a wave of pure absence. It emanated from the lead human vessel, a vessel that was itself a void, a shape of blackness that seemed to drink the light of the nearby star. The wave expanded, silent and inexorable. It passed through the Corsair fleet, and where it passed there was nothing, not wreckage, not drifting atoms or clouds of superheated gas. The ships, the beings upon them, their very energy signatures were simply gone, erased, the only evidence Had they ever been there was the sudden, jarring correction of the local gravitational field as their mass ceased to exist. In the wake of that silent wave, a sound had echoed through subspace, a low, resonant boom that was not a sound, but a reverberation of spacetime itself settling back into place. It was a sound that had shaken the Lumina observers to their core consciousness. In their records, they had given the phenomenon a name whispered in the deepest parts of their shared mind. The ghost dark thunder. That power, Xyler continued, his crimson light strobing with intensity, is an abomination. It is a violation of causality. It is a weapon that does not kill but unmakes. To possess such a thing and not be the masters of this galaxy is a tactical impossibility. They are hiding their true nature, Valerius. They are waiting. And we are sitting here, resonating in circles, while a predator of unimaginable power establishes a foothold at our border. Or, Valerius countered, his azure light holding steady against the crimson tide. It is a tool we do not understand, wielded by a species we have made no effort to comprehend. You speak of it as a weapon. Did they use it on the colony? Did they use it to seize territory? No. They used it to defend a non-combatant population from a known predatory fleet, an act of defense, perhaps a brutal, terrifying act, but defense nonetheless. Our fear is coloring our interpretation. Lyra's violet form shimmered, a flicker of ancient data scrolling through her facets. The prism of Concord is correct to urge caution. The archives are filled with the dust of civilizations that met a new species with fear and aggression. Those encounters ended in one of two ways: the annihilation of one party, or a long, grinding war of attrition that left both crippled and barren. There is rarely a third path when the first step is a threat. And there is no path at all when one is erased from existence, Xyler retorted. We are facing a crisis far greater than these humans. The stellar devourer approaches the Kepler-Viridia corridor. Our long-range sensors confirm its trajectory and its nature. It is not a fleet. It is not an empire. It is a thing, a mindless eating machine the size of a nebula, and it is on a course to consume a chain of stars vital to the energy lattice of this entire sector. Our fleets cannot stop it. Our most powerful weapons will be like throwing pebbles into a storm. Our calculations suggest only one hypothetical force could stop it, a targeted application of something that can erase mass on a stellar scale. The ghost dark thunder. The unspoken conclusion hung in the confluence, heavy and cold. They needed the humans' power. They needed the very thing that terrified them most. The irony was a bitter, grinding dissonance in the Lumina's collective harmony. So you would have us approach these ephemeral beings, Valerius said, his tone turning colder, more precise, and demand their ultimate weapon. You would have our first contact be a threat, an ultimatum. Give us your power or we will take it. How do you imagine that will be received by a species capable of unmaking fleets with a whisper? We would not demand. We would overwhelm, Xyler projected, his confidence a solid, unyielding wall of crimson light. We are the Lumina Imperium, our fleets are vast, our technology has been perfected over 1,000,000 years of unbroken stability. The humans are a flash, a spark. We are the enduring star. We will isolate their command vessel, excise this thunder technology, and use it to save ourselves. It is the logical, necessary course of action. The survival of the Imperium outweighs the sovereignty of a nascent, chaotic species. Valerius felt a deep weariness settle into his consciousness, the weariness of a diplomat who sees the path of reason being overgrown by the weeds of fear. He had seen this pattern before, in Lyra's archives, in the ghost histories of fallen empires. Fear was the great catalyst of galactic folly. It made a cage of one's own perceptions, and the only way out seemed to be to destroy the thing that was feared. Your logic is flawed, prism of dominion, Valerius stated, his azure light sharpening to a fine, intense point. You assume their power is a simple technology that can be reverse-engineered. What if it is not? What if it is an extension of their biology, their consciousness? What if it is a philosophical principle we cannot grasp? Your plan assumes 100 variables we cannot know, and its failure would not be a simple defeat. It would be an invitation for our own erasure. We cannot afford that risk. Not with the devourer already a certainty. He paused, letting his words settle into the very structure of the confluence. The star map above seemed to turn more slowly, its majestic beauty a stark contrast to the ugly, primal debate unfolding below. There is another way, Valerius continued, his light softening, becoming a beacon of pure, calm reason. A path that does not begin with the assumption of hostility. A path that begins with the one thing we have, thus far, refused to grant this new species, the dignity of an inquiry. We will not threaten. We will not demand. We will ask. The crimson light of Xyler pulsed with a silent, furious laughter. Ask. We will grovel before these biological upstarts. We will plead for our survival. The Imperium does not plead, Valerius. It commands. The Imperium survives, Valerius corrected, his voice resonating with an unshakable gravity. And it survives through wisdom, not arrogance. We will send a delegation. We will open a channel of communication. We will state our situation, the threat of the stellar devourer, and we will ask for their assistance. Their response will tell us everything we need to know about their nature. If they are the monsters you believe them to be, they will refuse or they will exploit our desperation. Then and only then may we consider your more direct methods. But if they are something else, if they are a rational, perhaps even ethical, species, we may find not a weapon to be stolen, but an ally to be gained. Lyra's violet light pulsed in slow, thoughtful agreement. A measured response. It creates options. Xyler's path creates only one outcome, for better or worse. Valerius's path allows for observation, for understanding. In the face of a true unknown, information is the most valuable asset. Xyler remained rigid, his crimson light a stubborn, burning ember of opposition. It is a waste of time. While your delegation is asking, the devourer draws closer. Your sentimentality will be the doom of us all. My sentimentality is called strategy, Valerius countered coolly. And it is the path the conquered will follow. I will lead the delegation myself. I will face this ghost dark thunder and the beings who wield it. I will look into the void and I will see what looks back. The debate was over. A consensus, however fragile, had been reached. The confluence of light settled back into a semblance of its former harmony, but the undercurrent of fear remained, a low, dissonant hum beneath the surface of their ancient calm. Valerius, Prism of Concord, prepared to transmit a message to the edge of the void, a message of peace and inquiry to a species whose very existence felt like a violation of reality. He felt the weight of his entire civilization on his resonance, a pressure that could either forge a new era of cooperation or shatter their eternal stability into a million forgotten shards. He was afraid, but it was a cold, clear fear, the fear of a surgeon before a delicate and unknown operation, not the hot, blind fear of a cornered animal. He would not let that fear dictate his actions. The Imperium's survival depended on it. The human response was as unnerving as their silence during the Corsair incident. It was immediate, efficient, and devoid of any discernible emotion. There was no posturing, no suspicion, no lengthy protocol. There was only a calm, simple message containing a set of coordinates and a time. It was an invitation. The location was deep within a trinary star system, a place of intense gravitational stress and stellar flares, a place no sane species would choose for a first contact. To the Lumina, it was yet another sign of humanity's illogical, chaotic nature. To Valerius, it was simply another piece of a puzzle he was determined to solve. The Lumina vessel, the Eternal Resolve, was a masterpiece of their civilization. It was not constructed but grown, a vast, kilometers-long crystal lattice that shimmered with captured starlight, moving through the void not by propulsion, but by subtly warping spacetime around its elegant form. It was a vessel of peace, but it was also a symbol of the Imperium's power and permanence. As it approached the designated coordinates, it moved with a grace and silence that had intimidated countless species for eons. But as it neared the trinary stars, its sensors detected the human ship, and for the first time in its long service, the Eternal Resolve seemed small. The human vessel which identified itself as the Stellaran was not large. In fact, it was dwarfed by the Lumina ship, but its presence was immense. It was a long, obsidian spear, a shape of perfect, non-reflective black that seemed to cut a hole in reality. It did not reflect the chaotic light of the three stars, it consumed it. There were no visible engines, no weapon ports, no viewports. It was a seamless, featureless object that radiated a profound sense of purpose and an unnerving stillness. It hung in the roiling chaos of the system, as if it were the only stable point in the universe. Valerius watched the image of the Stellaran on the main resonance screen of the Eternal Resolve's command bridge, a smaller version of the confluence of light. The other Lumina on the bridge, their crystalline forms shimmering with nervous energy, kept their tea. Haughts carefully shielded, but Valerius could feel their anxiety like a low-frequency vibration. "They have hailed us," the communications officer resonated. "They are offering to establish a direct link. They say their ambassador is ready." "Open the channel," Valerius commanded, his own azure light steady. "Let us see them." The image on the screen shifted. It was not a grand chamber or an intimidating command bridge that appeared. It was a simple, starkly lit room. The walls were a soft, matte gray. There was no decoration, no symbols of power. In the center of the room stood a single being, a human. Valerius had studied the sensor data. He knew of their biology, their bipedal form, their soft, vulnerable flesh. but to see one even as a projection was profoundly alien. It was so fragile, so temporary. It was a creature of liquid and pliable tissue, a stark contrast to the eternal, crystalline nature of the lumina. This one was female. Her hair was dark, pulled back from a face that was a mask of calm composure. She wore a simple, dark blue uniform, as featureless as the hull of her ship. Her eyes, two dark, liquid pools, stared directly at the sensor pickup, and Valerius felt an unnerving sensation, as if she were looking past the projection, past the hull of his ship, and directly into his own consciousness. "I am Ambassador Evelyn Reed," the human said. Her voice was not transmitted as sound waves, but as a direct teleempathic translation, a flawless rendering of her intent and meaning into lumina resonance. The translation was perfect, yet the voice itself carried a quality the lumina had no word for. It was soft, yet it had the weight of granite. "On behalf of the Terran Alliance, I welcome you, Prism Valerius of the Lumina Imperium. We appreciate you making this journey." Valerius gathered his thoughts, converting them into the same clear, direct transmission. "Ambassador Reed, I am Valerius, Prism of Concord. We thank you for accepting our request for dialogue. Your choice of location is unorthodox." A faint, almost imperceptible shift occurred in the human's facial muscles. The Lumina's empathic sensors, designed to read the most subtle biological cues, flagged it as a gesture of amusement, a concept they understood only in theory. "This system is a laboratory," Reed explained, her voice unchanged. "The high gravitational and energy flux allows us to study the fabric of spacetime under stress. It is a place of learning. We felt it was an appropriate venue to begin a new understanding. Please tell me why you have sought us out." There was no preamble, no diplomatic dance. It was a statement of disarming directness. Valerius felt Xyler's distant, crimson rage at the perceived lack of deference, but he pushed it aside. This was not a negotiation for territory, it was an appeal for existence. "We have come because our civilization, and indeed this entire sector of the galaxy, faces a grave threat," Valerius began. He projected the luminous sensor data of the stellar devourer, the vast, shadowy form, the dying stars in its wake, the inexorable trajectory. He showed the projections, the simulations of its destructive path. "We call it the devourer. It is a non-sentient celestial entity of immense destructive power. Our fleets cannot harm it. Our weapons are insignificant against it. In a matter of cycles, it will begin to consume the Viridia chain, and the resulting energy cascade will destabilize this quadrant for millennia." Ambassador Reed watched the data scroll passed on a holographic display that shimmered into existence beside her. Her expression did not change. Her calm was absolute, a deep, still ocean. It was more unnerving than any show of aggression would have been. "We have observed this phenomenon," she said simply, her eyes still fixed on Valerius. "Our designation is Stochastic Void Anomaly 7. Your analysis of its destructive potential is accurate." Valerius paused, taken aback by her simple confirmation. They knew. They had known all along and had said nothing. The thought was chilling. "If you were aware of the threat," he asked, his azure light flickering with a hint of strain, "why have you not acted? Why have you not warned the other civilizations in its path?" "It was not our place to do so," Reed replied, her tone level, matter-of-fact. "The Alliance adheres to a strict policy of non-intervention in the natural development of galactic events unless our own direct interests are threatened, or unless a non-sentient force poses a risk of total systemic collapse that cannot be managed by local powers. The anomaly did not meet the second criterion until its recent vector change. According to our projections, your Imperium possessed multiple theoretical means to divert or neutralize it. It was your challenge to overcome." Valerius felt a cold shock. Their logic was alien, almost cruel in its detachment. They saw a fire spreading towards their neighbor's house and decided it was not their problem to solve until the neighbor had exhausted all their own efforts to put it out. Xyler would have called it arrogance. Valerius saw something else, a code, a strict, unyielding set of principles. "Our theoretical means have proven insufficient," Valerius admitted, the projection feeling like a confession of failure. "Our understanding of physics has reached its limit in this matter, which is why we have come to you. We have witnessed your capabilities, an event involving a Grawl Corsair fleet at the Epsilon Reticuli colony." He did not say the name. He did not need to. The ghost Dark Thunder. He felt the term resonate between their two ships like a held breath. For the first time, Ambassador Reed's expression shifted. A flicker of something profound, something akin to sorrow, passed through her dark eyes. Ah, she said, and the single word was imbued with a universe of meaning. You saw that, I see. You have come to ask us for our weapon. We have come to ask for your help, Valerius corrected gently. We believe the force you deployed there is the only thing in this galaxy capable of stopping the Devourer. Ambassador Reed was silent for a long moment. She turned slightly, looking at the holographic projection of the stellar Devourer. The silence stretched, filled only by the low hum of the human ship systems and the distant, chaotic roar of the trinary stars. Valerius felt the weight of 1,000,000 years of Lumina history resting on her answer. Prism Valerius, she said, turning back to him, her voice softer now but with an edge of immense gravity. What you saw was not a weapon. To call it that is to fundamentally misunderstand its nature and our own. And what you are asking, you do not comprehend the cost. We are prepared to offer anything, Valerius said, a note of desperation entering his resonance. Technology, resources, territory. The cost is not something you can pay, Reed interrupted, not unkindly. It is a cost we bear. I believe it is time I showed you rather than told you. My ship, the Stellarin, is a vessel of exploration and research. Its primary function is observation. However, it is also equipped with a causal resonance editor. This is what you have named the Ghost Dark Thunder. It is not a weapon system. It is a tool for correcting inconsistencies in the universal fabric. Valerius felt a wave of confusion. Inconsistencies. The universe, as you know it, is one of a near-infinite number of probability streams, Reed explained, her words painting a picture of physics so far beyond the Lumina's understanding that it felt like magic. Most are stable, but sometimes errors occur, paradoxes, events that should not be, which threaten to unravel the integrity of a timeline. The Graal fleet you observed was not merely a fleet of pirates. They were a temporal anomaly. The result of a failed chronoton experiment by their ancestors centuries ago that had created a self-reinforcing causality loop. That fleet was not supposed to exist in our timeline. They were a ghost, a splinter of a dead past, and their continued existence was causing a cascade of microparadoxes that threatened to destabilize the entire sector on a quantum level. They were, in essence, a cancer on reality. She gestured to the space around her. Our weapon did not destroy them. It couldn't. They were already ghosts. The editor simply erased the paradox. It reached back along their timeline and closed the loop that created them. It restored reality to the state it should have been in. They were not killed. They were unhappened. The dark thunder you detected was the sound of spacetime snapping back into its correct configuration. It is the sound of a wound healing. Valerius was silent. His mind, a consciousness that could process quintillions of calculations per second, struggled to grasp the sheer scale of what she was describing. They were not manipulating energy or matter. They were manipulating causality. They were editing reality itself. The arrogance of Xyler, the fear of the Council, all of it seemed so small, so pathetically naive in the face of this revelation. They had been afraid of a thunderstorm, not realizing it was the side effect of a god mending the sky. The cost I spoke of, Reed continued, her voice heavy with the weight of her knowledge, is a philosophical one. Every time we use the editor, we take it upon ourselves to decide what reality should be. It is a burden of unimaginable gravity. We do not use it lightly. We have used it only 3 times since its invention. Each time was to correct a paradox that threatened to extinguish entire galaxies of life. We are not arbiters of galactic politics. We are not conquerors. We are custodians, gardeners in a garden we are only just beginning to understand. We prune away the cancers so that the rest may grow. Valerius finally understood. The humans' chaotic expansion was not chaotic at all. They were moving into the Unk. Lamed voids, because those regions were unstable, prone to the kind of reality-warping events that required their attention. They weren't colonists. They were watchers, guardians, standing sentinel on the fractured edges of existence. Their seeming detachment was not cruelty, but a necessary discipline born of a power so absolute it would corrupt anyone who used it for personal gain. And the Devourer, Valerius resonated, his voice now filled with a profound sense of awe. Is it such an inconsistency? That is what we are here to find out, Reed said. Our initial scans suggest it is a natural, albeit terrifying, phenomenon, a product of this universe's laws. To erase it would be a violation of our most sacred principle, to not interfere with the natural unfolding of the cosmos. It would be playing God, a role we have no right to claim. Hope, which had soared moments before, now plummeted within Valerius. So you will not help us. I did not say that, Ambassador Reed corrected him. I said we would not erase it from existence. That does not mean we cannot deal with it. The causal editor is a tool of last resort. Humanity has other, more subtle methods. The universe is more than just matter and energy, Prism Valerius. It is information, and information can be rewritten. She turned to her holographic display and, with a gesture, overlaid a new set of data on the image of the stellar devourer. It was a complex waveform, a biosignature of impossible complexity. The devourer is not just a collection of exotic matter, she explained. It is a colony organism, a single unified consciousness operating on a scale you can barely imagine. It does not think as we do, but it perceives. It follows patterns. It is drawn to specific stellar energy signatures, much like a predator is drawn to the scent of its prey. We cannot destroy it, but we may be able to persuade it to change its course. She looked back at Valerius, and for the first time he saw not a diplomat or a custodian, but the representative of a species that had looked into the deepest, most fundamental secrets of the universe and had not gone mad. They had instead found a sense of profound responsibility. "We will help you, Prism Valerius," she said. "We will not give you a weapon because we do not have one. We will offer you our knowledge. We will work with you. Together, we will communicate with this entity. We will show it a new path, a new pattern to follow, one that leads it away from your worlds and into the empty void between galaxies, where it can live out its long, slow existence without harming anyone." The offer was so much more than Valerius had dared to hope for. It was not a transaction. It was a partnership. It was a hand of friendship extended from a species they had feared and misunderstood, a species that wielded the power to unmake reality, but chose instead to use the power of understanding. "We accept," Valerius resonated, his azure light glowing with a brilliance it had not shone in years, a light of pure, unadulterated hope. "We accept, and we are humbled Ambassador Reed. Our fear made us blind." "Fear is a logical reaction to the unknown," the ambassador replied, a hint of genuine warmth finally entering her voice. "The only true mistake is to let that fear be your only guide. Now let us begin. We have a Star Eater to talk to." The alliance between the Lumina Imperium and the Terran Alliance was forged not in the fire of war, but in the quiet, shared awe of a monumental task. The Stellarin and the Eternal Resolve became the twin hearts of a vast, combined operation. Lumina ships, their crystalline hulls glowing with purpose, formed a precise sensor grid around the approaching stellar devourer, their analytical engines, perfected over 1,000,000 years, providing the raw data. The humans aboard their silent, black vessel processed that data, interpreting it not just as physics, but as biology, as behavior, as a form of proto-language. Valerius remained in constant communication with Ambassador Reed. He found her species to be a paradox. They were beings of profound empathy, capable of understanding the motivations of a creature as alien as the devourer, yet they maintained a rigorous, almost cold logic in their actions. They were deeply philosophical, yet ruthlessly practical. He learned that their calm was not an absence of emotion, but a mastery of it, a collective discipline forged over centuries of wielding powers that could otherwise breed cosmic tyrants. Xyler and the other prisms of the Imperium watched from afar, their initial skepticism slowly dissolving into a grudging respect, and then into outright astonishment. They saw human engineers working alongside Lumina savants, bridging the gap between two completely different technological and philosophical foundations. The humans did not see the Lumina's adherence to universal laws as rigid. They saw it as a stable foundation upon which to build. The Lumina, in turn, began to see the humans' fluid, adaptive approach not as chaos, but as a necessary component for evolution and survival. The plan the humans devised was elegant in its audacity. They would not use force. Instead, they would create a lure. Using the Imperium's vast energy-weaving technology, guided by human understanding of the Devourer's perceptual patterns, they would project a series of phantom, ghost stars in a trajectory leading away from the Viridia corridor and out into the intergalactic void. It was an act of cosmic misdirection, of shepherding a leviathan with whispers and shadows. "We are crafting a story for it to follow," Reed explained to Valerius during one of their conferences. "A narrative written in the language of gravitational resonance and neutrino emissions. Every living thing, from the smallest microbe to the largest Star Eater, follows a narrative. It is seeking sustenance. We are simply offering it a better tale, one where its path leads to a feast in an empty land, rather than a banquet in a crowded city." The operation reached its climax. As the stellar devourer approached the critical point of no return, the combined fleet began its broadcast. The Lumina ships, acting as a single, massive resonant projector, wove the complex tapestry of energy. The Stellaran stood at the heart of it all, a silent conductor, using subtle manipulations of local spacetime to ensure the ghost stars felt real to the Devourer's ancient senses. For a long, terrifying moment, nothing happened. The Devourer continued on its path, a wave of absolute destruction. Xyler's crimson light, even from light years away, pulsed with doubt and a grim, "I told you so," certainty. And then it began to turn. It was a slow, majestic pivot, a movement on a scale that defied comprehension. The colossal entity, a being the size of a solar system, altered its course. It was like watching a continent drift. It shifted its attention from the real stars of the Viridia chain to the first of the phantom stars projected by the fleet. It moved toward the lure, its ancient, inscrutable hunger now directed toward the empty darkness between galaxies. A wave of relief so profound it was almost painful washed through the Lumina Imperium. In the confluence of light, the prisms glowed in unified brilliance. Even Xyler's crimson light was muted, replaced by a deep, resonant tone of respect. They had not defeated the monster. They had befriended it in a way. They had understood it. Humanity had taught them not how to fight a bigger gun, but how to think a deeper thought. Aboard the Eternal Resolve, Valerius shared a moment of silent, mutual acknowledgement with Ambassador Reed. They had succeeded. A new era of cooperation had dawned, born from the shadow of extinction. The galaxy felt larger, more filled with possibility than it had just a few cycles ago. "A remarkable achievement, Ambassador," Valerius projected, his azure light a soft, contented glow. "Your understanding of the universe is profound. We are in your debt." "There is no debt, Prism Valerius," Reed's voice replied, warm and clear. "We all share this small corner of existence. It is only logical that we help each other keep it habitable. Our work here is almost done. Once the Devourer is on a stable exit vector, we will take our leave." As the joint fleet monitored the Devourer's steady progress into the void, the Stellaran's deep-range sensors, operating on principles far beyond Lumina technology, remained active, scanning not just the Devourer, but the void into which it was heading. A junior Lumina science officer, monitoring the data feed shared by the humans, noted an anomaly. "Prism Valerius," the officer resonated, his light flickering with uncertainty. "I am detecting a signal. It's embedded within the Devourer's biosignature. The humans appear to be focusing their sensor array on it. It is incredibly faint, and it is not a natural component." Valerius turned his attention to the data. He saw it too. A faint, repeating pattern almost lost in the colossal noise of the entity. It was structured, artificial. He opened a priority channel to read. "Ambassador, my team is detecting a structured signal from within the anomaly. Can you confirm?" There was a pause. When Reed's voice returned, the warmth was gone, replaced by the same grave, serious tone she had used when speaking of the causal editor. "We confirm, Prism. We have been analyzing it for the last hour. We have isolated and decrypted the signal. It is not coming from the Devourer. It is something it absorbed long ago, a message from its creators." Valerius felt a cold dread descend upon him, a fear far deeper and more primal than the threat of the Devourer. "Creators, we believed it was a natural phenomenon." "So did we," Reed said, her voice low. "We were wrong. It is artificial, a biomechanical failsafe, a world-eater built in a time of desperation by a civilization that no longer exists. The message T is a warning." A new window opened on Valerius's main screen. It displayed the translated text of the ancient signal, a message that had been traveling inside the belly of a monster for untold eons. The words were simple, stark, and utterly terrifying. "It is done. We are the last. Do not make the same mistake. The ghost dark thunder is a beacon. It is their dinner bell. They hunt the echoes. Silence yourselves. Silence the song of reality. It is the only way to survive the coming silence." Valerius stared at the words, his consciousness reeling. Ghost dark thunder, the Lumina's own name for the human's reality-altering power. The message was not about the Devourer. The Devourer was an afterthought, a failed weapon. The message was about the very power the humans wielded. "Ambassador, what does this mean?" Valerius asked, his voice a faint whisper in the vastness of space. Reed appeared on the screen, her face pale, her calm finally, truly broken. In her eyes, for the first time, Valerius saw a reflection of his own civilization's ancient fear, magnified 1,000-fold. "It means," she said, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly, That the causal editor is not unique. It means that others long ago also discovered how to edit the fabric of reality, and it means that doing so attracts attention. She looked away from the screen toward the star chart of the galaxy, which now seemed fragile and small. The echoes, that's what we call them, the ripples in spacetime left by a causal intervention, the dark thunder. We thought it was just the sound of reality healing, but it's not. It's a signal, a resonance that travels across dimensions we do not yet understand. She turned back to him, her eyes dark with a terrible, newfound certainty. For our entire history, we have believed ourselves to be the custodians of this reality. We were so careful, so burdened by our responsibility. But we were wrong. We are not the gardeners. We are not the gods. We are just children playing with chimes in a dark forest, and we have just realized that the sound carries. The stellar devourer was not the true threat. It was a symptom. The real threat, the thing its creators fled from, is what comes when it hears the song. And we, with our ghost dark thunder, have been ringing the loudest bell in the galaxy. The Stellarin and the Eternal Resolve floated in the silence of space, two ships from two vastly different civilizations, now united not just by friendship, but by a shared cosmic terror. The stellar devourer, their former adversary, continued its slow, lonely journey into the black, no longer a monster to be feared, but a messenger of a doom far greater than its own hunger. Valerius looked at the warning from a dead civilization, and he finally understood humanity. He understood their caution, their discipline, their solitude. They had been living with the fear that something might be listening, and now they knew. Something was, and it was hunting. The silence of space was no longer empty, it was waiting.